She woke up on a Wednesday morning in April, and the first word she spoke was her husband's name. It came out wrong. Not wrong in the way a voice sounds after sleep. Wrong in a way that had no comparison, no reference point, no prior moment she could hold up next to it and say, "Yes, I have heard this before." The vowels landed in places they had never landed. She said it again. It came out the same way. Mike Colwill stood in the doorway of their bedroom in Plymouth, England, and looked at his wife of 11 years. She was sitting up in bed. Her eyes were the same. Her face was the same. The room was the same. The voice was not hers. Sarah Colwill had gone to sleep, a woman from Devon. She had woken up sounding like she had never lived there at all. She had not had a stroke. She had not had surgery. She had not spent time abroad, or studied a foreign language, or been exposed to anything that could account for what her husband was now hearing from across the room. She had only had a migraine. It was the spring of 2010, and Sarah Colwill was 38 years old. She had lived in Plymouth her entire adult life, a port city on the southwestern tip of England, shaped by sea light, dockyard history, and the particular cadences of West Country speech. Soft consonants, drawn-out vowels, an accent so specific to its geography that outsiders could identify it within a single sentence. Sarah had that accent, had always had it. It was as much a part of her as the sound of her own heartbeat, as the way she moved through a room. She worked. She raised her children with Mike. She maintained the ordinary rhythms that define a life that is not remarkable, which is to say, a life that is entirely real. She was not, by her own account, exceptional in any way. She did suffer from migraines, severe ones, not the kind that send you to bed with the curtains drawn and a glass of water on the nightstand, the kind that send you to the emergency room, that drop you without warning, that your family has learned to recognize from the way you go quiet before they fully arrive. She had been hospitalized for them on multiple occasions. She knew exactly what they felt like. She thought she understood what they were capable of. On the night of April 4th, she felt one beginning. She recognized it immediately. The particular pressure building behind her left eye, the way her peripheral vision began to distort at the edges. She told Mike. She lay down. The pain built in the way it always had, moving from behind the eye outward, spreading across the left side of her skull, consuming everything around it until there was nothing left in the room but the migraine itself. Then slowly, it lifted. She opened her eyes. The bedroom was quiet. The pain had gone. She lay still for a moment, waiting to confirm that it would not return. It did not return. She sat up, turned to her husband, and said his name. The sound that came out of her mouth had never come out of her mouth before. Something had happened in the night. Something she could not see, could not feel, could not place her hand on. Something that the migraine had done on its way out of her, in the same quiet way that damage sometimes happens. Not with noise, not with a visible mark, but with an absence where something used to be. She did not know what it was. She did not yet have any reason to believe it was permanent. She opened her mouth again, and the same foreign voice came out, and the room went very still. The migraine had taken her accent with it. They went to their GP the following morning. The doctor examined her carefully. He checked her reflexes, her coordination, her comprehension. He asked her to follow his finger with her eyes, to squeeze his hands, to name the day of the week, to count backward from 20. He was looking for the signs of neurological compromise that a serious event would leave behind. He found none. His conclusion was stress. The severity of the migraine, he explained, could trigger temporary neurological disturbances. Migraines were capable of producing transient changes in speech, vision, and motor function. These effects resolved as the inflammation in surrounding tissue settled. Her voice would come back. It did not come back. A week passed, then two. The accent remained precisely as it had appeared on that first morning, not shifting, not softening, not loosening at any edge, settled into her speech patterns as though it had always belonged there. She was referred to a speech therapist. The therapist worked with her across multiple sessions. She conducted articulation assessments, vocal pattern drills, exercises designed to identify and correct the specific sounds that had changed. She told Sarah that the accent was most likely a psychosomatic response, a subconscious physical expression of stress or emotional disturbance. With the right therapeutic support, it would resolve. Sarah completed every exercise she was given. The accent did not shift by a single sound. Then came the moment that broke her open. She called her mother on a Thursday afternoon in May. Her mother, when a woman she had spoken to every week for 38 years, who had known her voice since before she could form words, picked up the phone and did not recognize who was calling. Her mother thought she had dialed the wrong number. Sarah sat with the phone pressed to her ear and felt something inside her give way entirely. She would describe it later in an interview recorded after the diagnosis was finally made. I felt completely invisible, like I was screaming from inside a glass box, and no one could hear that it was me. She was referred to a neurologist. An MRI was ordered. The images were reviewed by 2 separate radiologists. Nothing obvious appeared. No tumor, no bleed, no structural lesion of clinical significance. The official note entered into her file at the conclusion of that appointment was 4 words long: cause unknown, no further action. She was 38 years old and she had been living in a voice she did not recognize for nearly 2 months, and the medical system had run out of things to say to her. She drove home alone. She went back to her life, to her children, to Mike, to a workplace where colleagues listened carefully when she spoke and could not quite hide the confusion in their eyes. She continued to see the speech therapist. She continued to do the exercises. She continued to wait for something to shift. Nothing shifted. 14 months after the migraine, she was referred to a specialist. Dr. Nick Miller worked in the field of neurological speech disorders. He had seen unusual presentations before, cases where the mechanism of damage was subtle enough to escape standard imaging, where the symptom told a story that the scan could not yet confirm. When Sarah sat down in his office and began to speak, he did something that most of the previous doctors had not done in the same way. He listened to all of it, not just to the accent, to the complete timeline, told in sequence, without interruption. The migraine itself, its location, its duration, the particular quality of the pain, the visual disturbances in the minutes before it peaked, the medication she had taken. And then he asked her one specific question that no one had asked before. Had she experienced any tingling or numbness in her face or jaw in the lead up to the attack? Sarah stopped. She had. A strange numbness around the lower left side of her jaw in the final minutes before the migraine reached its peak intensity. She had mentioned it before, in earlier consultations. No one had followed up on it. Dr. Miller ordered a different kind of imaging, not a standard structural MRI, which captures the anatomy of the brain at a single moment of rest. A functional study designed to observe the brain's activity in real time during the specific act of producing speech. He wanted to see not what her brain looked like, but what it was doing when she talked. What he found was not dramatic in the way a tumor or a hemorrhage is dramatic. There was no obvious mass, no large bleed, nothing that would have stood out on a conventional scan. What there was instead was a disruption, specific, localized, measurable, in the neural pathways connecting the brain's speech-motor planning regions to the muscles responsible for producing language. The disruption was centered in and around an area of the left frontal lobe called Broca's area, the region responsible for coordinating the precise muscular sequence that the tongue, lips, and jaw execute when a person forms spoken words. The migraine, Dr. Miller believed, had caused a vascular event in that exact region, not catastrophic enough to register as a stroke on standard imaging, not large enough to cause the kinds of obvious neurological deficits that an emergency room physician would be looking for, but sufficient, precisely sufficient, to alter the routing of motor instructions from Sarah's brain to her speech muscles. She was not speaking a foreign language. She had no hidden exposure to Eastern European speech, no unconscious reservoir of a different accent to draw from. Her brain was producing the same phonemes it had always produced through a slightly altered motor pathway. The movements of her tongue and lips were fractionally different from what they had been before the migraine. And those fractional differences, accumulated across every word she spoke, produced sounds that every English-speaking person around her heard as unmistakably foreign. The condition had been described in the medical literature as far back as 1907. It had been documented in fewer than 100 confirmed cases worldwide at the time of Sarah's diagnosis. It was not a psychiatric condition. It was not a behavioral pattern. It was not something that would respond to stress management or to the breathing exercises she had been doing for over a year. It was called foreign accent syndrome, a neurological event with a specific, traceable mechanism and a name. Dr. Miller sat across from Sarah and explained all of this to her, piece by piece, without rushing any of it. Then he told her the part she had been waiting 14 months to hear. He looked at her directly and said, "There is a reason. This is real, and you are not imagining any of it." Sarah said she wept for 20 minutes in her car after leaving the appointment, not because he had given her a cure. He had not. There was no protocol that could reverse what had happened in Broca's area, no medication that would restore the original routing, because he had given her something she had almost stopped believing she would find: a name. She drove home through Plymouth with a voice that was not hers, and for the first time since the morning after the migraine, she was not entirely alone inside it. Sarah Colwill lived with her Eastern European accent for 6 years. In 2016, after an extended course of speech therapy built specifically around her neurological profile, designed by clinicians who understood the actual mechanism rather than assuming a psychosomatic cause, she began to recover fragments of her original Devonian voice. The recovery was uneven and slow. Vowel sounds returned before consonants did. Some phonemes came back almost completely. Others never returned at all. She never fully recovered the voice she had been born with. She went public with her story. She gave interviews to national newspapers and broadcasters. She wrote about her experience in detail. She sought out others living with the same condition. People who had spent months or years being dismissed, told they were fabricating symptoms, redirected towards psychiatric services, and discharged with files that contained the same 4 words she had been given: cause unknown, no further action. Her case contributed to a wider clinical conversation about how foreign accent syndrome is recognized in emergency and neurology settings, what imaging is most appropriate when it is suspected, and how patients presenting with sudden unexplained accent change are evaluated rather than immediately reclassified as psychosomatic. The condition remains rare. It remains poorly understood. There is no universal treatment protocol, and outcomes vary depending entirely on the nature of the underlying neurological event, its location, its extent, and how quickly the correct diagnosis is reached. But it is documented. It is real. And because of cases like Sarah's, the 4-word note at the bottom of a discharge file is slightly less likely to be the end of someone's story. Sometimes a diagnosis does not mean a cure. Sometimes it only means that someone finally believed you.